Ash and Ember by Demi B, 2025. The forge crouched at the edge of the woods, chimney black and quiet. Rust freckled the tongs. A cracked bucket leaned beneath the window where ivy threaded through the sill. When the wind pushed the door, it breathed a thin whistle through the hearth's cold throat. Leaves rattled like coins across the threshold, then settled, then skittered again. Dust lay on the anvil like frost, pale and undisturbed. The place smelled of old smoke and iron, as if memory lingered in the air. Outside, the last crickets ticked. Somewhere distant, a flock of geese stitched its ragged line across the evening. Inside, Ash dreamed of heat. Silas stood in the doorway and felt the old weight settle on his shoulders. The heft of a hammer never quite set down. He was older now, wrists stiff, breath shorter, the quiet heavier than any bar of steel. He stepped inside and trailed his fingers over a row of chisels, naming them back to himself without sound. The anvil's face reflected a smudge of light from the open door. He remembered nights when the forge had pumped like a heart, when sparks leapt to the rafters like bright seeds. He remembered also the day the music stopped. He laid his palm on the hearthstone, as if greeting a friend too long ignored. It came like a swallowed star exhaling, a pulse beneath ash. Silas squinted. There, deep in the bed of gray, one ember winked awake. Then another. No match, no tender, just the smallest light, stubborn and sure. He bent, cupped his hands, felt a ghost of warmth brush his skin. The ember did not die. It waited. Outside, wind worried the eaves, and a few brown leaves pattered against the door. Silas lifted the bellows by reflex, testing the leather quietly, and the forge seemed to lean toward him. He pressed once, twice. Breath met ember. A thread of orange took, then deepened, low and steady. Heat licked the soot-dark bricks. With it rose a story. Maya at 12, sleeves rolled, eyes bright, learning as her father showed her how metal changes color when it's ready to bend. His voice too crisp, her questions eager, then hurt by his silence. There had been no storm, only the quiet weight of a sentence set down too hard and another left unsaid. The door had closed softly that evening, but it closed. Now the fire found its language again. The color in the coals passed from dull cherry to orange. Silas touched the hammer's handle. The wood remembered his grip. He wondered whether hands could learn to hold without pressing too hard. The knock was scarcely a knock, more the tap of knuckles that could change their mind. Silas turned. Maya stood in the frame, older, taller, wind lifting a curled strand of hair. She smelled the old sweet of pine smoke, and something inside her steadied. "I saw the light," she said, almost apologizing. The fire reflected in her eyes, making her look nearer to the girl who had counted sparks and called them fireflies. Silas didn't trust his voice. He stepped aside, letting the warmth meet her first. Between them, the forge breathed. The rafters creaked once, as if waking too. Silas tried words. They clinked like dropped nails, too small, too sharp, scattered where they fell. "You grown," he managed. "The forge, it..." The sentence curled into smoke. He wiped his hands on a rag that had forgotten softness. Maya shifted, gaze slipping from his face to the tools. The bellows sighed. The coals answered with a slow, patient glow, as if refusing to hurry for either of them. Outside, a gust pushed a handful of leaves along the wall. They scraped like paper. Silas set the hammer down carefully, the way one sets a cup beside a sleeping child. The quiet between them was not empty. It was waiting. Maya's voice was steady, almost gentle. "When I was younger, it felt like you cared more about the work than me." The words hung above the fire, warm but not cruel. Silas did not defend himself. He let the sentence settle, felt it find its place. His breath went in and out once, twice. The forge hummed low, like a hive at evening. He nodded, not agreement with the past, but acknowledgement of the wound. The only answer he offered was listening, and the coals seemed to brighten to that small courage. Maya's shoulders eased, just enough to notice. As if heartened, the flame drew itself taller. It licked the grate, then leaned into orange and gold. Silas added kindling with a care that surprised him. The forge's light mapped old fingerprints in soot along the bricks. Heat reached the tongs. Metal clicked softly as it warmed. The room took on that particular autumn glow, more amber than summer, gentler than spring. Silas felt the impulse to apologize, but could not yet find the line. Once, under his breath, he almost said her name. But the fire spoke louder, and he let it stand. Outside, the wind pared leaves from branches until each tree showed its bones. Silas chose a bar of scrap iron with a slight twist at one end, the kind he might once have tossed aside. He set it in the coals until its skin ran orange, then drew it out and laid it on the anvil. His first strikes were uneven, too light, then too firm, his wrists remembering and forgetting in the same breath. The sound rang through the rafters, not bright like it used to, but true enough. The iron yielded grudgingly, like a stiff door easing on its hinge. Sweat found his brow. he tasted ash. He worked anyway, slower than before, more careful. Maya stood just beyond the circle of sparks, the old rhythm tugging at her feet. She remembered counting beats between strikes, the secret pleasure of knowing when the hammer would fall. She remembered her own hands on the bellows, sneaking extra breath just to watch the coals bloom. The ache in her chest was not resentment now, but something softer, like a bruise that had begun to fade. Silas's blows steadied. He shifted the bar, turned it, coaxed it back to square. When the iron cooled, she saw him hesitate. Her palms itched with the shape of a tool, the reach for tongs. After a long pause, Maya crossed to the bellows. She chose the rhythm she remembered. Pull, pause, press. Breath, heartbeat, breath. Silas glanced at her, then back to the color rising through the iron. They could have said many things. Instead, they worked. Tongs spoke to Anvil. Anvil answered. The glow in the hearth swelled and sank like a tide. Their shadows moved together along the far wall, taller than either of them, not quite touching and yet aligned. The room filled with the old orchestra. Hiss, ring, thud, sigh. Words would have been too small for the size of the turning underway. The metal fought them. It buckled where it should have folded. It cooled faster than memory. Silas lifted, reheated, struck again. Maya turned it smoother on the face, finding the flat by feel. At one stubborn corner, the edge cracked. They both froze. Long ago, he might have flared, the quick temper of a tired man. Now, Silas only breathed. Quench, he said gently. She dipped, steam flared, the hiss like bread meeting pan. They tried a different angle, a thinner pass, a lighter hand. Gradually, the line held. The piece remembered it could become. Let it rest a breath before the next heat, Maya said quietly. It won't fight you as hard. Silas looked at her, surprised to find he was relieved to listen. They waited. 1, 2, then fed the coals. When the color rose again, he struck where she pointed. The metal moved. It was a small thing, no more than a neat seam along a stubborn edge, but it felt like a door opening inward. Silas pressed his mouth into something that might be a smile. The fire made its own approval, fluttering brighter, tossing sparks like seeds across the dark. Now their rhythm found them. Hammer fell, bellows breathed, tongues turned, water sang. The forge burned clean and clear, a honeyed roar that set the window's frost to a mist. Outside, leaves scraped in little eddies along the wall, and then were gone. Inside, they bent hinges flat and trued the corners. Silas scored simple lines into the soft iron, a leaf, another, a small star tucked at a meeting of edges. Maya brushed the filings away, careful not to mar the face. The air smelled of iron and pine smoke, and the small sweetness of effort honestly given. What they were making was delicate, not in weakness, but in intention. It was not a blade, not a plowshare or a gate latch. It asked for patience. It returned dignity. Maya saw it first, the way the sides met, the lid seating shyly and then sure. The shape of a box began to emerge, small enough for 2 hands, strong enough to be passed and not break. Hinges and pins lay ready, iron matched to wood, waiting to be joined. The lid rose and fell, like a breath taken and released. On the face, the faint edge of leaves and stars caught the firelight and held it gently. Together, they carried the forged pieces to the quench. Silas gripped the iron hinges, still glowing faintly, while Maya steadied the wooden body so it would not slip. When the hot metal kissed the water, steam rose in a white ribbon and wrapped the rafters in a soft veil. The sound was not struggle, but relief, a whisper after exertion. Silas held the box steady as Maya steadied his hands. The balance felt right. Though only the iron drank the water, the wood seemed to share in the cooling, warmth lingering where her palms pressed. When they drew it out, droplets trembled along the edges, then slid away. The iron was darker now, tempered, carrying promise. They laid it on the bench beside the shaped wood, and working carefully, fixed the cooled metal into place until wood and iron moved as one. At last, the box stood between them, waiting as one lets a word sink in before answering. It was simple. It was beautiful. Iron gave it strength. Wood gave it warmth. Along the lid, the scored leaves wandered like a remembered path. At the corner, a small star waited, almost hidden. Maya traced a groove with her fingertip and felt the steadiness of the line. The box had no lock. It did not guard against others. It invited the one who held it to add what mattered. "A box?" she said, half bemused, half moved. Silas nodded, watching her rather than the work. Outside, wind pressed its palm against the wall and then let go. "It isn't for keeping things safe," Silas said, and his voice was lower than the fire. "It's for holding space, for trust, for what was lost, for what we choose." He opened the lid. Inside, there was only room, the clean scent of wood, a square of waiting. Maya ran her thumb along the inside edge, felt the softness where the grain had been burnished smooth. Her throat tightened, then eased. She didn't have the perfect words, but she had the box, and it said enough. Silas closed it gently, as if closing a door without shutting anyone out. They stood with the box between them, and the forge, as if satisfied, let its flame fold downward. The roar softened to a murmur, then to a long, even sigh. Embers cupped their light and kept it small. Maya set her palm on the etchings. The leaves and star were warm beneath her hand. "It's not everything," she said, and the saying did not sting. "It's a beginning," Silas answered, and for once the words fit. The box seemed to gather their agreement into itself. Outside, a final gust cleared the guttering leaves and left the yard bare and honest. Maya lifted the box. As she did, the forge's glow loosened into embers and settled, red as berries among fallen oak leaves. The quiet returned, but it was not the old kind. It had weight and warmth. Silas banked the ashes with the tender, ordinary care of a man closing his day. They stepped to the door. The trees stood like dark ribs against a cold sky. Somewhere beyond, water moved under a skin of fallen leaves. Maya pressed the box to her chest. "We'll fill it," she said simply. Silas nodded. Behind them, the forge went still. Ahead, Maya carried the box into the cold night, its weight steady against her heart.